Okay, so I want you all to imagine a time when you saw a complete stranger in need. It could be something as simple as somebody who had their hands full and needed a door open for them, to someone who was stuck on the side of the road and clearly was at a loss for what to do. Did you stop to help? If you did, why did you? If you didn't, why not? I would guess that a lot of your answers would range anywhere from I had a lot of my own problems going on that day to I would have been late had I stopped to help that person. Or the classic, there were plenty of other people around who could have done something about it and helped. And what I want to focus on today is that third reason. When we are witness to an event and see somebody needing help, which is also known as the bystander effect. What is the bystander effect? It is a social psychological phenomenon where you are witness to a crime or an event and you see somebody who is clearly in need, but you choose not to take action because there is a group of people around and you feel that there is a diffusion of responsibility. So you don't feel at fault and you can kind of place guilt on others for not taking action. And this obviously isn't an exact replica of what happened to me, but I had a personal experience with this. It was a few years ago, and it was on a day where it was raining sideways outside, and my mom, my husband, and I had just been grocery shopping at Winco. And we saw this woman who was in a wheelchair and was severely disabled. She was missing an arm, missing a leg, and was blind. And her caretaker was with her. And what happened next was just crazy. Her caretaker took off and went running for the car and left this woman at the curb to fend for herself. And that's exactly what she tried to do, and it ended with her face down in the street in the pouring rain. And my mom and I immediately ran to her to try and help her get back into her wheelchair, which was very difficult. And in the time it took for my husband to get our cart situated and come over and help us, there were multiple people who had driven past, as well as multiple people who had walked past and had offered no help. And so this was the first time that I really saw the bystander effect in action and saw how big of an impact it can have on our social lives. So what causes the bystander effect? There's three different things. The first is ambiguity. So this is more related to vagueness. You walk into a situation and are unsure of what's happening, so you refuse or deny to take action, I guess, because you don't want to do something that you shouldn't do. You're not aware of the entire situation. The second is cohesiveness, and this is more related to groupthink. So when a group of people are interacting with one another, we all tend to do what's best for the group goal. And so when you see somebody standing on the sidelines not taking action, there must be a reason that they're doing that. So you naturally stop and don't take action yourself because you assume that the goal that they are trying to fill is one subconsciously that you're helping them fill. And the third is a diffusion of responsibility, which is one that I spoke of a little bit earlier, where you tend to place blame on other people or the other people who are involved in the situation. You think that they should help instead of yourself. Kitty Genovese is actually a case from March 13th, 1964, and she arrived at her home and was walking from her home to her front, or from her car to her front door, and in that 10-foot period, she was attacked from behind and stabbed multiple times by a man who they realized later had absolutely no connection to Kitty. He was just someone prowling in the neighborhood. And after she had been stabbed, she screamed out in help, and her neighbors yelled out the front window, "Leave her alone." And nobody actually came to help her. And so this gentleman ran away and continued to circle the neighborhood, and when nobody came to offer her help, he came back and continued to stab her several more times and then sexually assaulted her. And sadly, before emergency responders could arrive, Kitty had died at the scene, and there were 38 witnesses to this event. So, in explanation of what happened, two psychologists, Darley and Latane, created an experiment where they had participants who came, and there was a participant and then a pre-recorded track in one round, and then the next round there was a participant, another, and a pre-recorded track, and then the next one was a participant, 5 others, and a pre-recorded track. And the track that they had playing was somebody who was in distress. And what they wanted to see was how people reacted based on the knowledge they had of how many people were involved in the situation. So they were placed in a room by themselves, and could hear this track being played over the intercom. And what this graph shows is that in the first round, when they knew it was just themselves and the victim, 83% of people sought help. In the second round, only 61% of people sought help. And in the third round, which is more related to the bystander effect when you have a large group involved, only 31% of people sought help for the victim. What their experiment also taught us was that emergency versus non-emergency situations plays a role in how quickly somebody receives help. So the first picture is obviously something we recognize as an emergency. The second I wanted to show, because how many times have we all been in the grocery store where you're annoyed at the person who's in the front of the line for whatever reason it may be. They forgot something, they don't have enough change to pay for an order, and you choose to be annoyed by the situation. And a genetic predisposition for this is actually pretty interesting. When you think of a fight or flight instinct, so you see a burning building, you hear people inside needing help, what do? Do you run inside, or do you avoid situations that put you outside of your comfort zone? And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you feel fear or anxiety or any heightened emotion, your limbic system actually takes over and you ultimately are kind of not in control of what you do. You're genetically predispositioned to fight or flight in situations like that. So what can we do about that? You can learn to train your brain and react differently to the emotional responses that you have. And a psychology professor from Harvard, his name is Ron Richard, he created a 4-step scenario of what we can do to start changing how we think and how we feel. The first is to recognize your immediate emotional response. How do you react to something? Recognize that. And then the second step would be to challenge that automatic reaction. So if you see a burning building and you hear people inside and you imagine yourself in that situation, running away, not calling 911, whatever it may be, imagine yourself doing something different than that. The third step is to develop an awareness for opportunities of effective thinking. So again, that situation in the grocery store, you might not initially think of it as the bystander effect, but if you chose to do something different, you can make a big difference in somebody's life, and you have no idea what little impacts can have on the choices that you make. And the fourth step is to act your way into a new way of believing or acting. And I put this picture on there because we all know this image from 9/11 and the men and women who died protecting those or trying to save those who were trapped in those buildings, and how not only were they genetically predispositioned maybe to do that, but how they would have made that decision before being put in that situation to do something and to help. Another thing that we can do about this is to learn to recognize it and then stand up and do something about it when you see it happening. You can educate other people on the bystander effect. You can also stop hesitating in situations where you feel like somebody is in need. More help is always better than no help. It's always better to be safe than sorry. We have to be willing to take action so that we can be the change that we wish to see in the world. Because if you were the person in need, wouldn't you want someone to stop and help you? Thank you.